This radio program is intended to be for informational purposes only. The information does not constitute legal advice. The law is constantly changing. The information may not be complete or correct depending on the date, your particular legal problem. Each legal problem depends on its individual facts. Different jurisdictions have different laws and regulations. And because of that, you should not act or rely on any information in this segment without seeking the advice of a competent attorney licensed to practice law in your jurisdiction for your particular problem. He is Marshall Chriswell. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good to have you with us this morning.
Nice to be here.
All right, so I saw this story last week of a woman, and I've actually met a couple of others who had adopted children, including one family came in, and they had 4 adopted children, 3 girls and a little boy.
Oh, wow.
And so got to meet them last week. Adoption, let's talk about that this morning from
Sure.
a legal standpoint. There must be all kinds of ramifications for a family when they are adopting a child, and so let's discuss that a little bit. In Pennsylvania, are the laws surrounding adoption pretty much the same as they are in other places, or does each state have its own set of rules and regulations?
Each state does have their own set of statutes and procedural rules related to adoption. And of course, I practice in Pennsylvania, and so Pennsylvania has a very clear adoption statute, and there are several different types of adoption. My office handles all different types, including private adoptions between non-related people, family adoptions, private adoptions between families, step-parent adoptions, aunts, uncles, grandparents, as well as agency adoptions, whether it be adoptions through the foster care system, children youth services, and also through private agencies. So there are different requirements for different types of adoptions.
I would guess international adoptions are regulated as well.
They are, and those carry their own sets of requirements.
Okay, so when a family is considering adopting a child, and you can pick the category of those ones that you just mentioned, what are some of the steps that, as an attorney, you would want to be involved in to ensure that everything works out the way that it should?
Sure. Initially, meeting with the client and understanding what the situation is, exactly what type of an adoption we're dealing with, and to the best that we can ascertain whether this is going to be an adoption. If it's a private adoption, is this going to be an adoption by consent, or are there circumstances that necessitate an involuntary adoption, as far as are the birth parents in a situation where they're not able to care for this child, but they're not willing to relinquish their rights, and is that something that's going to be possible? So those, just initially getting the lay of the land and understanding, what's at play here and what type of an adoption scenario are we dealing with. And then moving forward, I just alluded to the parental rights of the birth parents, whether this is through an agency, whether it's by consent, or whether it's involuntary, taking the necessary procedural steps to ensure that those parental rights are terminated, because you want to, whenever you move forward with the adoption phase of the proceeding, you want to have all the confidence in the world that adoption is completely final. Mm-hmm.
I'm sure that there are parents or prospective parents who want to adopt who come to you, some of whom have no idea what they're getting into and what the various ramifications are, some of whom have done research on the internet that may or may not be flawed.
Sure.
In terms of Pennsylvania's laws. And I would guess that as an attorney, it's an educational process that you have to start on ground floor, isn't it?
Right. So it's interesting. One of the scenarios, one of the questions that I get a lot from folks is a situation where, let's just say its mom has sole custody of their child, and they come and they say, okay, well, Dad's been out of the picture for so long. I want to terminate his parental rights. I want because he's got issues that are not conducive to raising a child, aren't in the child's best interest to be around those, and he's contributed no support, maybe never even met the child. And you have to have a conversation about, okay, well, in Pennsylvania, to do that, we actually need to have an adoption proceeding. Mm-hmm. There needs to be a step parent, or at least a fiance, a very committed relationship to step in and take over that role. And then we start to talk about, okay, what is that a situation that you have in your family, in your home, and is adoption a route you want to take? So that's a common adoption related scenario that we talk about a lot.
What about single folks who want to adopt?
Yeah, and single parents can adopt in Pennsylvania. Those are generally done through agencies. So through the foster care system, a single parent can become a foster parent and can eventually adopt a child. Single parent can adopt through a private agency as well. So there's nothing in Pennsylvania law that prohibits a single parent from adopting, and generally that's where children were given up for adoption, and there were consents from the birth parents, and it goes through an agency.
The screening process for prospective adoptive parents must be pretty tight.
It is so, and it depends on the type of adoption we're dealing with. If it is a family adoption, so if you are a step parent, a aunt, uncle, grandparent, sibling of the prospective adopted child, then it's a little bit looser. There aren't as many requirements now. If you are an unrelated person, you're going to be going through a home study, Pennsylvania State Police, FBI background checks, and if you're going through the foster care system through an agency, a Children Youth Services government agency, then there are going to be additional requirements as well. A family profile study. Often there are going to be some supervised interactions with the child and reports generated based on that for the court to see. So. So it just depends on the type of scenario it is, but yeah, absolutely, there are some requirements there.
I'm tossing out all kinds of things that just pop into my mind.
Yeah.
Okay, there must be a legal difference between a parent and a guardian. Yes or no?
There is the ultimate outcome of an adoption proceeding is that you're going to become this child's parents. Mm-hmm. Okay. And they will have all of you'll have all the legal responsibilities that a parent does to their child, and the parental rights to do what's in that child's best interest, to make decisions regarding their education and their health care and all those things. And also the child's going to have all the rights of a biological child as related to you. So inheritance rights and things like that. So that the parental relationship is a much stronger legal relationship than a guardian. You can become a legal guardian of a child through a court action, filing a guardianship petition. Okay, mm-hmm. We see this often when parents unfortunately pass away and leave minor children, and a grandparent or other relative or someone will step in and become a legal guardian. That doesn't create a parental relationship like I just talked about. But it does give you the ability to make decisions on behalf of the child in their best interest. So there's a big difference between parents and guardians.
So throwing questions at you that would come up in my mind if I were to come to you and say, Marshall, I'm considering adopting, and what do I need to know? One of those questions would be, do I need to fear that after I am the legal parent of this child that I've adopted, that somehow that can be reversed and the original parent, the biological parent, come back and say, no, you know what, I changed my mind, I want my kid back?
Well, and if the adoption process, if the process is done correctly and all of the proper notices are given, the consents are signed, there's a waiting period after these consents are signed before an adoption petition can be considered by the court. All of these procedural requirements, if they're met according to Pennsylvania law and the procedural rules, then that adoption is final. And that is what we strive, of course, in every adoption, is to give the finality of the adoption to the child, to give them permanency if for the rest of their lives. Now, there are in Pennsylvania, there is something called a post-adoption contact agreement, a PACA. And we do these as well. And sometimes this is something that everybody wants whenever, particularly in private adoption. So Pennsylvania recognizes the enforceability of contracts where the adoptive parents and the birth parents can form an agreement for actual contact between the child, whether it be cards and letters or sharing of school pictures or things like that, or actual physical contact between them. And so it's a way that you can maintain a connection with the birth parents if that's warranted in that situation, but still have the finality of an adoption. Yeah. There are all different types of scenarios.
Yeah, there really are, and I would guess that it is a very, very complicated procedure that you don't. Well, we know you don't want to do this alone. You probably can't do this alone. You need an attorney.
You really can't. I don't know if I've ever seen a pro se, an unrepresented party, go through the adoption process. And so, you really do need to have an attorney. And depending on the type of adoption. Most attorneys I know in my office, I can generally quote a flat fee for that kind of work. So if cost is a concern, you can quote a flat fee so you know what you're getting into there. And it's just there are a lot of little just procedural things that you're not going to know. Even doing some research on your own, or even reading the statute and the rules, you're not going to be able to figure that out on your own.
Yeah. The court doesn't want to see you coming in there anyway. They want an attorney to come before them because they know that they have their stuff together.
Yeah.
All right. So, folks want to learn more about adoption, maybe consult with you about adopting. What do they need to do?
They can give me a call at 724-465-5826. Stop in and see us in the Atrium Building, downtown Indiana, or go online to www.westernpalawyer.com.
Marshall, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
It's the voice of Indiana County, WCCS, AM 1160 and 101.1 FM.